Hey everyone, it's Nate here with Element Van Life. I just wanted to do my Tuesday Q&A video. I do these every other Tuesday. The way it works, just post your questions in the comment section below, and then I will answer them in the next one. The next video will be on Tuesday, April 18th. Let's get started, guys. We got a lot of great questions to go over this week. The first one comes from Coolio2foots. They say, have you ever thought about working on a cruise ship? Not really. I haven't really thought about it too much. When I saw you put this question on here, I started thinking about it a little bit. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I've been on a couple cruises before, and it definitely seems like it would be a really difficult position, a difficult job. You're kind of working a lot, and I don't know, but at the same time, I'm sure you're making some good money, and it's a really interesting experience to meet people from all over the world. You're constantly meeting new people, so there's definitely seems like there's a few benefits to doing it, but something I would need to think about a little more before offering a real opinion about it. The next one comes from John C. Umbrello. They say, hey Nate, my dad and I are going on a cross-country trip from Connecticut to California and back over the next 2 weeks, beginning on April 17th. We're taking my '08 Element. Right on. So any thoughts? Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks is you're going to be doing a lot of driving. That's going to California and back. It's a solid 3,000 miles, I would say, from Connecticut, right, or something close to that. So you're going to be doing a lot of driving for sure. In terms of like truck stops and Walmarts, that definitely works. I've stayed at a bunch all over the country and really haven't had too many troubles. Like Pilot Flying J's and Love's truck stops and stuff like that are usually great, and they're usually pretty much everywhere along the main interstates. And then as you're getting off the interstates, I don't know if you've heard of the website freecampsites.net, I think it is, or .org. It's one or the other, but they have a lot of great free campsites out, but they're more towards like rural areas, especially out west and stuff like that. There's a lot of them on there, but those are really awesome as well. You can take advantage of a couple of those. It's very relaxing, very nice to kind of get away from the hustle and the bustle of like the truck stops and stuff like that. Next question comes from Teachin. They say, how many solar panels could you get on top of that roof? Could you fit 100 watts? Yeah, I think the most I could put is probably about 200, maybe a little more. I could maybe put like a 140 watt or maybe two 140 watt ones. I don't know. I think 200 watts is probably my maximum that I would want to do. And I'm actually considering getting another 100 watt panel at some point in the near future. Yeah, right now to have them mounted, it's just like a bendable panel, so I actually have it just stuck to the roof with 3M VHB tape. But if I were to get like a traditional rigid one, I would have to mount it somehow with brackets to the roof rack, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing if I get another panel. So the next question comes from Swifty with Fragilex. They say, have you thought about getting a mobile hotspot so you can get internet in your van? Yeah, I have thought about that. I had one for a little while, a Boost mobile hotspot. It's like a Sprint tier 3, I think, tier 4. I don't know. They use the Sprint network. They piggyback off the Sprint network. And it was not very reliable and not very good even here in New Orleans, so I ended up getting rid of it. I didn't really use it that much either because I was going to libraries and coffee shops anyways, because 10 gigs is not really enough to support all the data that I need. But when I hit the road again, I'm thinking about getting like a Verizon hotspot, just something like $50 a month or something like that, just to have some extra data in case I'm in a position where I can't get to a coffee shop or something like that. And then also, what kind of music do you listen to? So I really enjoy your videos. Thank you. In terms of music that I listen to, a lot of like acoustic stuff, folk, classic rock, some soul, a lot of stuff like that. It's kind of hard to say that I'm into a lot of different types of music, definitely. Michelle Cummings says, what edit program do you use for your videos? I use Adobe Premiere Pro CS6. Kyle Young, hey Nate, was thinking about doing the van life this summer up in British Columbia and Canada. My question is, how do you dry out all your gear, wetsuits, board shorts, towels, etc.? Using the gym, that's a good question actually. So it's kind of a pain, I guess. I mostly would just hang dry it if I'm nearby. I can just hang my wetsuit up from my roof rack, and it dries it out pretty quickly. But without the sunshine, it definitely takes longer. It still will dry when it's out there. It just might take an extra day or two. So you kind of need to just like leave it out there whenever I get the chance. Whenever I'm near the element, like say I'm in a coffee shop and there's a window and I can see it, I'll hang it and just do it like that. Or I'll just hang out in the element for a few hours and try to let it dry when there's sun out. But yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of struggle. Towels, not so much, because I use really lightweight towels, so they dry pretty quickly. But the wetsuit definitely definitely just mostly stays damp. When I keep it inside the element, I do wrap it up in a towel to keep it from getting everything else really wet that's near it. So that definitely helps a little bit, but yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle. That's a good question. Next question comes from Donald Lee. They say, "Hey Nate, Don here. Like your videos. Thank you. So is it hard to get the videos to your computer? So in terms of like, yeah, no, I just have like a micro SD card which I use, and I put them on there, just stick it in, and I have a little port. There's an SD card port on my computer, so I can just get all the videos off the drone and the GoPro and stuff like that really easily. Do you use an editing program? Yes, I just answered that one. Adobe Premiere Pro CS6, and then the music that I add about that, it comes usually from the YouTube audio library, but sometimes I'll use like royalty-free music from other places as well. Next question comes from Danger Ranger. They say, how reliable has the element been, and what sort of repairs have you encountered? So the biggest repairs, you go in with a 2005 165, right on. Use it as a work van. Cool. So yeah, in terms of like reliability, I had an issue with the ignition switch failing, which is very common on most 03 elements and CRVs, I think, from that same generation as well, which was a real pain in the butt. But that was probably the biggest thing. The starter went out a while ago, and I've had some issues with corrosion on the battery terminal, which has kind of messed with the electrical system a little bit. But other than that, not really too much. AC's been having issues recently, if you've been following some of the recent videos, but I think that was because the condenser fan went out, and now it's back, so hopefully it's going to keep working. But yeah, I mean, it really hasn't been too bad though. Pretty minor stuff, except for the ignition switch thing, but it's just common. Elements have their unique set of weird little problems, and if you look at the Element Owners Club website, you'll see that there's a whole forum about all the random problems that the Elements have. Laura Rain says, "Hi Nate, I enjoy your channel." Thank you. Do you deal with the heat at night while sleeping? Do you open the windows? If so, what about bugs and mosquitoes? So yeah, in terms of dealing with the heat, like last night was actually really hot here in New Orleans, so I put the fan on in the middle of the night when I woke up and was pretty warm, and that worked out pretty well. I typically will crack the sunroof if it's really hot. Never really had any issues with bugs getting in though. I mean, most of the time I'm in the city and there's not really a whole lot of bugs, especially in California, so I don't know. Maybe if I'm in like a buggier environment, that would be more of an issue, but so far so good in terms of that. Richard Stewart says, with your bed setup, how do you get to the spare tire if needed? That's actually a really good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked that. It's a real pain. Hopefully I'll never need it. That's kind of the way that I would look at it. I would really have to take things apart in here and move things like to the front or move them out of the element to get to the spare tire. I think I would be better off just, getting a tow to the nearest shop and just getting the tire patched or getting it replaced. Unfortunately, that's kind of what I would have to deal with in order to deal with that situation, but it's just, I guess it just comes with the way that I set it up. There's really not too much else that I could do. Next question comes from Doug Anderson. What do you do about internet? So mostly like coffee shops, Starbucks, public libraries, things like that. Brad Mayer says, "Hey Nate, have you ever seen the setup Fifth Element Camping is made for the Element? Living in the Element, how functional do you think the setup would be for you?" Great videos. Thank you. So yeah, in terms of Fifth Element Camping, yeah, I've definitely seen their stuff. It's really, really awesome. It is kind of expensive, so it's not something I think that I would probably invest in, considering that I already have this set up here, but it seems like it's pretty neat. In terms of full-time living in there, I don't know how well it would work. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of storage space. I feel like I probably have a little bit more with the way I have this set up here, but I don't really have that much stuff. Like, I have empty space underneath me right now, so I feel like I could probably get away with it. It's really cool. It's just a little bit too expensive for what I would want to do. Marine Eileen says, what about your #1 tip for new nomads and van dwellers? Oh geez, okay. What do you do in sense of security? Yeah, so in terms of security, I lock my doors at night. I try to stay in quieter residential neighborhoods that don't look too sketchy or anything like that. I definitely keep an eye out for it. I know New Orleans really well, so it's pretty it's pretty easy for me to know where to go, especially when I'm here. In terms of my #1 tip for new nomads and van dwellers, that's a really tough question. It took me a while to make the decision to move into the Element full time, so I think that pulling the trigger to actually just go forward and do it. And I know it might sound cliche, but that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is just to go forward and actually, if you want to do this, to to give it a shot and stick with it. There's going to be rough nights. There's going to be nights at the beginning that you might not be very comfortable. For me, I got pretty comfortable very quickly, but for some people, I can imagine it's different, and everyone's different. But stick through it and just enjoy it for what it is. I think that there really is a benefit to this lifestyle in terms of the freedom that it gives you and the ability to kind of just go wherever. And I don't know, I think that that's something worth giving a shot to. In terms of how you achieved a job where you can be location independent, I never really did. I don't really have one particular job, but I've been trying to teach myself skills like video editing and coding and web design and web development and all of these different things that I can piece together and just do for different people so that I can make money remotely or just make money wherever I am. And that's kind of what I've been doing, just trying to learn as many valuable skills that allow me to be remote or allow me to work wherever. And that's kind of where I've been with that. JKBR says, is the Element actually a van? No, it's technically, I guess, a compact SUV, I think they would say. It's like a cousin of the CRV, but I consider it more of a van because it's got more space in here, and it's I don't know, I feel like it's closer to the Odyssey than it is to the CRV based on the headroom and the space inside. Next question comes from Caden Beeks. They say, if you could take the Element to any place in Europe, where would it be? Spain. I would definitely like to road trip around Spain. I've been to Barcelona. That's really the only time I've ever been to Europe. So if I could road trip around Spain, that would be what I'd want to do. Go to everywhere from El País Vasco to Galicia, down to Andalusia and, Valencia and south, and I mean everywhere, all over Spain, and Portugal too, probably, while I was over there. Next question comes from Rut Kali. They say, I live and have a full-time in Massachusetts. You think it is possible to live in a car over here? What do you think about the Toyota Prius? I do like the Priuses a lot. I don't know if they have enough space in them for what I need necessarily, but I think that they're really, really awesome, especially if you're traveling solo. And then in terms of Massachusetts, yeah, it's definitely doable, except for maybe in the winter time. You might want to go south in the winter because it gets pretty cold in Massachusetts. I know when I was up there, I spent a couple of nights in the Element when it was like 20 and 30 degrees outside, and it's doable. But the thing is, that was like in the early winter. Like that's not even like the coldest that it gets, obviously. So when it gets to 20 below or 15 below, or when it's snowing, I mean it can get pretty uncomfortable night after night, I can imagine. Next question comes from George McLog. They say, great Q&A, really enjoyed it. Thank you. I'm introverted as well and don't really get lonely, so I think being in a van will work for me. I can see how an extroverted person doing okay with more social connections. Yeah. So questions, what do you like more, spending time in the big cities or in park-like travels like camping in the woods? That's a tough question. That's a good question, though. In terms of what I prefer, I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on where I am. I do like being in cities because I like having easy access to stores like Walmart and stuff like that. So that's kind of nice. But I don't know. I also really like my time in more rural environments like the national parks and stuff like that too. It's tough for me to answer that. Like right now, I've been in New Orleans for so long, and I'm really longing to get to more towards a rural area and spend a couple of weeks, just camping out and hanging out. But at the same time, I'll miss, what New Orleans has to offer and what the city has to offer too. I don't know. Grass is always greener on the other side, I guess. Next question comes from Daniel Lopez. They say, do you have any sponsors, or is this entirely your own one-man show? If not, have you ever thought about taking on a sponsor or a few? I'm not really sure what you mean by sponsor, but no, I don't really have anyone sponsoring this at all so far. But yeah, I mean, sponsors would be cool. That would definitely be interesting. I think if it's the same kind of sponsor that I'm thinking about, like a company or something. I don't know. Definitely something to consider. Next question comes from Weger. They say, since you own a drone, are you interested in getting a hobby grade RC car, gas or electric? Probably not. I think that those are really cool. They are definitely pretty neat. But I don't know if I'd have space to be able to keep it in here and to use it. And then he also says, do you have a favorite basketball team? If so, what is it? Boston Celtics is my favorite basketball team. Southern Man 142 says, Nate, I heard you say you film on the LG G4. My wife and I are big fans of the LG phones. I have the V10. Last month our phone had a boot loop. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Yes, I have heard of it. In July, back last summer, I had it happen to me. It's the same exact thing. Yep. There's really no fix for it. Your phone just doesn't turn back on. You try to turn it on and it just keeps, the LG screen keeps coming up, and you're pretty much out of luck. There's not really much you can do. I had to send it in. Luckily, it was still under warranty, so they replaced it for me for free. But yeah, definitely wasn't a fun experience. Depose, that being said, I still love the phone. Depose, how supportive have your parents been? Also, how often do you make new friends when you continue talking when you're on your trip? Awesome videos, by the way. Keep it up. Thank you. So, my parents are, like, they're more supportive, I guess, now than they were at the beginning. Supportive isn't the right word. They would much rather see me, settle into something more serious, like into a house or an apartment, and just get a job, like one job, and just stay settled down in one area for the rest of my life, because they worry about me, obviously, and that sort of thing. But that being said, they're more open to the idea, and I do talk to them more frequently now, so that's good. And then in terms of how often do you make new friends, when I'm in like a certain area, like when I was in like the national parks, like near the campgrounds and stuff like that, out hiking and things, you'll meet people when you're around, and when I do that, there are a couple that I've stayed in touch with and stuff. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, those are your chances to meet people. Obviously, when you're driving alone from one place to the other, you're not going to meet anyone, but if you put yourself out there and you go and you try to meet people in areas like that, or get involved with that, certain activities when you're in a certain area, like surfing and stuff like that, I met people through that as well. Then that's kind of how I've been able to do it. Next question comes from B48044514. That's a lot of numbers. Nate, I really enjoy your personality in these vlogs. Are you thinking about the next chapter in your life? The one that has 3 kids and a dog, LOL. Yeah, no, that's definitely not the next chapter in my life. It might be the next chapter in some people's lives, but I don't think I'm ever going to have 3 kids, maybe not any kids. And I do like the idea of maybe getting a dog, but like a small dog to be in the van with me, but it also doesn't seem very likely, at least not for a while. Next question comes from WTFWC. Out all places have you lived in the element? What's your favorite place to live and why? That's another tough question. I really enjoyed my time in San Diego. I really liked it out there. I definitely miss it there. I miss being able to surf every day, definitely. But I also really enjoyed my time in Montana as well, which is not near the ocean. I don't think I'd want to live there forever, but I really enjoyed visiting there, so if that makes any sense. But I guess my favorite place to live, it's probably San Diego. Adventures with Rosie. Question for next week: what advice would you give new YouTubers starting out? That's a good question too. I'm not really like any kind of YouTube expert or anything like that, so it's kind of tough for me to give any advice on it. But part of it is just kind of sticking with it and continue to make videos, and in doing that, I've kind of discovered that I really enjoy shooting video and editing video as well. So as you stick with it and just keep at it, and keep posting, I think that's probably the best advice that I could give you, or maybe that anyone could. In terms of YouTubers, my collection of video games. You have to go to Utah, Moab, and all the national parks are awesome. Are you into hiking, rock climbing, or mountain biking? Also, did you visit Yosemite? So I didn't visit Yosemite. I didn't get the chance to do that. Next time I'm in that area, though, in California, I'm definitely planning to see it. In terms of rock climbing, something I want to get into, but I also have way too many hobbies, so I don't know if I need to get into that in addition to what else I do. So maybe not, but definitely something I'm interested in. I've never been mountain biking, but in terms of hiking, yeah, I'm definitely into hiking. I'm not really like an expert hiker. I've only been hiking like a handful of times, but the times that I've done it, I've really enjoyed it, and I really would love to go to Utah, Moab, and Zion, and see some of those places and hike there and explore, definitely. Lewis Gregory Hinojosa says, hey dude, I got a question for you. I have a 2005 Ford Explorer right now, contemplating whether I should turn it into a truck, into the truck to a camper. How much do you think it would cost? So in terms of the, making a truck, a camper out of the SUV there, I mean, it really depends on how much you want to spend. If you want to make it so it's just like a bed platform back there, you could probably do that for $100 with the, with the wood and the lumber and the, like a mattress pad or something like that, an old mattress pad, and you'd be fine. But if you want to make it more comfortable and build things like what I have with a sink, or like if you want to put like a fridge in and a solar panel, that's going to be the bulk of your expenses, and that'll push probably close to $1,000 when you start installing a solar system and a battery isolator and a deep cycle battery and a charge controller and a fridge and stuff like that. Those are the things that are most expensive. Captain Ashra says, have you ever thought of using something like a soylent for food, so like non-solid foods? No, I haven't. You said you've gone 2 weeks with it. Wow, that's pretty cool. No, not something I've ever thought of. Maybe I'll have to consider it. I'll have to look into it. Sonia Hendrick says, do you run across disabled folks in the full-time stealth van dwelling community? Yeah, they're definitely out there for sure. Would you find it viable and desirable to live in the element if you were in that situation yourself? I'm sure that would make it a lot more difficult. I mean, for me, setting up the bed is something that you kind of have to be in at least decent shape to be able to do. So if you're disabled, I can imagine that would make it a lot more difficult. So I don't know. That's a tough question. Not sure. Vanilla Swirl says, did you ever get the idea to live in a van yourself or from YouTube? Just to get the fact that since you're using once, if it seems like you've been doing very well. A nice haircut, by the way. Thanks. So yeah, in terms of the idea to live in the van, it came mostly from like Googling like living in a car and stuff like that, and then I got directed to cheaprvliving.com and found the forum there, and then to YouTube and found a bunch of YouTube channels. So yeah, I mean, a lot of my inspiration from choosing the van life definitely came from YouTube. Definitely. Audio Morpheus says, always enjoy your videos. Have you considered exploring northern Louisiana, Alexandria, Natchitoches? Yeah, I've been to that area before. I've explored Alexandria and Shreveport and Bossier City and pretty much everywhere. Monroe. I've been to all those places. In terms of like going back there to like spend time, I haven't really thought about it too much. But I mean, I have definitely been there before and definitely enjoyed the times that I spent out there. Visual Traveler. Do you ever consider getting a bigger van? Yes, it sure would be nice, and I love the country tune playing at the end of your videos. Can you tell me where you find it? It's just from the YouTube audio library. I think it's called Windows Rolled Down by the 126ers. It's a pretty cool song. I definitely like it too. And then in terms of getting a bigger van, yeah, it's definitely something I've thought of at some point. If something happens to the Element, I'll definitely consider upgrading to something bigger for sure. Maybe like a Ford E350 or something like that, or maybe a Class B like an older road truck or something. Jerry Pritchford says, hey buddy, I really look forward to all of your videos. Thank you. When do you think you are going to be back on the road traveling again? Within the next month, I'm planning to get back on the road, probably at some point middle of May or so. 8.no says, I'm considering living in a Jeep Cherokee Sport. Good or bad idea in your opinion? It's probably something that's definitely doable. I know that the newer Cherokees are a little bit maybe less reliable than some of the older model ones. I don't really know a whole lot about Jeeps though, but if you already have the Cherokee and you have the space in there, you can probably build a pretty nice camper out of it and make it work. Definitely, there's a lot of good Jeep Cherokee videos and Jeep Wrangler videos and stuff on YouTube of people that live in their Jeeps full time. Next question comes from Boondocker Bill. They say, how much water do you have and what size containers? They're I just use like little 1 gallon water containers that I buy from Walmart or from a grocery store. I have a sink setup video. If you check that out, it'll show them in more detail, but they're about 1 gallon, and I just switch them over, and one's the fresh and then it becomes the gray and so on, and it just kind of goes like a cycle. I heard you mentioned you may increase your solar. How many watts do you currently have? I have 100 watts currently on the roof. It's partially shaded though by the roof rack, so it's a little bit less than that in reality. Mike M, are you going south anytime soon? Probably not, no. I don't know how much more south I can get. I think someone said if you went any more south, you'd be in the Gulf of Mexico. But in terms of like Florida, if you mean that, definitely not. It's already getting too hot here in Louisiana, so I can't even imagine what it's like in South Florida right now. Next question comes from ImSweetP2. They say, why did you choose the Element in particular? Why not a Pilot or some other larger van? So the Pilot actually has less space in it than the Element, but in terms of like a larger van, I was looking for a vehicle back then. I made a question in a video about choosing a van to live in. It's an older video, but if you check it out, it's on the channel. But in terms of that, I mean, I wasn't really 100% set on living in a van full time when I bought the Element, so that was part of it. But I knew that it was possible to possibly live in that vehicle, but it would also be a great vehicle for like my lifestyle in general. So that's part of why I ended up with it. And then it does seem kind of small. I think to answer your question, there, a 6-foot person could comfortably sleep in it and live in one. If you're like 6'4", 6'3", if you're starting to get to that height, it might be a little bit less comfortable. But my bed's 75 inches when it's fully stretched out, and you could probably make one a little bit bigger if you designed a little bit different setup. So I think that if you're 6 feet, you could probably make it work pretty easily. And the last question here comes from Albert Gonzalez. They say, hey Nate, I've been watching your videos for a bit. Thanks for keeping me entertained. My question is, when you go to a new town, how do you know which is the bad part of town or the good part of town, and do you worry about your safety? So I don't really worry too much about my safety. If I'm in an area and I'm staying in residential type areas, you know, I'm probably not traveling. I'm probably like settling there for a week or two or maybe more. So I just can kind of drive around and try to figure out, you know, what areas are good. I spend a little bit of time when I'm in a new city looking for a place to park at night. I don't just like pull off into the first place. I do like to try to get a feel for the area, especially even during the daytime. I'll be driving around and scoping out and thinking of areas that I'm going to stay. So in doing that, I think I'm usually okay with avoiding bad parts of town and stuff. That being said, it's not guaranteed that I haven't stayed in a bad part of town, but I don't really worry too much about it. I feel like it's you know, for one night, just being in an area, just doing the best I can to avoid a bad area, that it works out in the end. So that does it for all the questions, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, post your questions below and I'll answer them in the next one. Like I said, the next one will be on April 18th. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll talk to you all in the next video.